to today's webinar, How to Use Read Theory to Teach Writing Skills. I'm Carolyn Vento, and I'm the Marketing Engagement Manager here at ReadTheory. And it is my pleasure to introduce you today to our presenter, Lori Elkins-Solomon.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Or I guess at this time, it's for some of us, it's just turned into afternoon, 12 noon. And it's nice to see everybody on this August day. And I know some people have already gone back to school, and some people are anticipating going back to school in the next week or so. I live in New Jersey, and we are actually returning. My school district is returning to school week after next week. So we still have a little reprieve, but I know that whether you first started or whether you're going back in a couple of weeks, your mind is probably already turning and churning and making plans for the coming school year. I know my mind is certainly churning. And this is the time when we start to review our resources that we used from last year and think about what we're going to be using for the coming year. And hopefully ReadTheory will be a tool that you will incorporate into your school year. It's got a lot of great resources that we will be looking at today. The emphasis today will be on how to use ReadTheory to teach writing skills. So those of you who have used ReadTheory in the past, you're probably very familiar with the idea of using it to augment the instruction of reading skills in your classroom. But what we will focus on today is a little bit of a twist, and that's how to use ReadTheory to teach writing skills. So a little background about myself. I teach at the East Brunswick Magnet School, which is part of the Middlesex County Magnet School system. And I teach grades 9 through 12. I'm going into my 18th year in this school. I'm an educator for about 30 years. And my background, I was originally a journalist. I was a professional writer, and then transitioned into education. Taught middle school for a couple of years, taught on the college level, adjuncted at a couple of different colleges, and taught at a few more schools along the way. And then 17 years ago, ended up at East Brunswick Magnet School, and I love it here. I teach a variety of different levels and courses, and what I really like about ReadTheory is that I've been able to incorporate it into all my different classes. I teach everything from special needs up to dual credit college courses and AP English. And ReadTheory has something for everybody on every level. So I'll try to speak to that a bit today as well. All right, so as teachers, we instinctively know that reading and writing are intrinsic to each other. And we know that being a good reader can help you to be a good writer, and being a good writer can help you to be a good reader, and that the skills work with each other. But sometimes the higher ups in our schools may not understand that. And so we will look at the research today for those of us who need to kind of show data. I know particularly with the younger grades, sometimes reading and writing are separated into two different blocks or two different subjects, and really to build up skills in both areas, you need to kind of teach them in conjunction with each other. So we'll look at what the research says. We will look at standards-based connections, particularly taking a look at the Common Core standards, which are similar from school to school. And even if your school is not using Common Core, their standards probably resemble Common Core standards because they're basic skills that students need to learn. So we'll take a look at the connections between standards and what ReadTheory has to offer. We will also look for strategies to connect reading and writing, both in ReadTheory and in general. And then we will look specifically at the resources that ReadTheory offers to help to make those connections in your classroom. And then, of course, we will have a Q&A at the end. As we're going along, please feel free to post your questions in the chat. And we do have a chat moderator who will respond to questions as they come along, or they may advise you we will address that later on at the end during the Q&A session. So depending on the type of question and where it fits in with the presentation. All right, so let's get started. We will begin with talking about what the research says, connections between reading and writing instruction. And so in recent years, there has been a lot of research done in the areas of reading and writing and how they kind of cross over with each other. And one study, or a series of studies that was done by Professor Steve Graham at the University of Arizona, found that writing instruction and reading instruction have positive reciprocal effects. And again, as teachers, that's common sense. We know that, but it's helpful to see the data as well. We know that education, just like every other field at this point, is very data driven. So it's good to have the data on our side. There are links that are provided with these studies, and you will be given access to those links so that when you're done with the presentation and on your own time, you'll be able to take a look at that research in more detail if that's of interest to you. The NOCT policy brief on reading and writing across the curriculum similarly states that, quote, discipline-based instruction in reading and writing enhances student achievement in all subjects. Without strategies for reading course material and opportunities to write thoughtfully about it, students have difficulty mastering concepts. And that is not just in language arts, that is across the curriculum. So science, social studies, humanities, any subject where there is reading and writing, if you're integrating both those skills together, that's going to enhance the student's skills in those subject areas. Okay, third piece of research. So according to literacy educator Timothy Shanahan in 2017, quote, about 70% of the variation in reading and writing abilities are shared. In other words, there is an overlap between the skills required to read and to write. For example, decoding, which is a reading skill, and spelling, which is a writing skill, both use similar mental processes. Teaching reading and writing in tandem is not only more efficient, but more effective. So that's our data. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about Common Core. And again, I recognize that Common Core is not used in every single school. And certainly we have a lot of international attendees today, and Common Core may not be the curriculum that is followed in other school districts around the world, but the standards in Common Core are very familiar. So there's nothing there that I think that any teacher or language arts instructor would disagree with, the idea of citing strong evidence or determining the main idea in a piece of writing. So the standards that I'm listing here are really just as examples. They're from Common Core, but you may have a different number and letter assigned to your standards. But I tried to choose ones that are general enough that any of us could relate to as a teacher. So I want you to take a look for a moment, and maybe even we can put a few answers in the chat here. What do you observe about the standards below? And these are taken from the grade 9 Common Core curriculum. So I want you to notice there's a reading standard here and there's a writing standard here. The reading standard, cite strong and thorough textual evidence to support analysis of what the text says explicitly, as well as inferences drawn from the text. Now, keep in mind, that's a reading standard. Here's a writing standard. Write arguments to support claims in an analysis of substantive topics or texts using valid reasoning and relevant and sufficient evidence. This is standard number 1 in reading and standard number 1 in writing. So I'm wondering in the chat if anybody's seeing maybe some commonalities or maybe other interesting observations about these two standards. I see Denise says, to cite is to repeat, to write is to analyze what is cited. Seeing if there are any other thoughts. Sheila says, you can't do one without knowing how to do the other. Absolutely. Beverly, they are interdependent. Evidence supports the claim. Absolutely. They both need to use evidence from texts. So yes, I think everybody's really on point here. So the reading standard says cite evidence. Well, that's what we're writing. We're asking our students to do when we're giving them writing assignments as well. And the writing standard is saying write arguments in an analysis of the texts. Well, then it's already implied that we are reading texts and then responding to them in writing. So built into these Common Core standards is the assumption that reading and writing are being taught together. So you have to dig a little deep to see that, but that's key to success with those standards. So if you notice that the reading standard integrates writing skills and that the writing standard integrates reading skills, you're right. Built into the Common Core is the assumption that reading and writing skills complement each other. If your school utilizes Common Core or a variation of this curriculum, or if your curriculum has standards that are similar to these, it's imperative that you teach these skills in conjunction with each other. We want student success, we want teacher success, we want school success. All right, so let's talk a little bit in general about strategies for connecting reading and writing, and then we're going to really dig into read theory. So some ideas for connecting reading and writing. One really powerful tool is graphic organizers. We talked about the fact that to think about writing, you need to be able to integrate what you have read. And to think about reading, you have to have a structure for organizing your thoughts. And that's where the graphic organizers really come in handy. So thinking about mental structures in the students' minds, if you can create a mental structure that crosses over both reading and writing, that will help to solidify that learning in the student's mind. So let's say, for example, you did a genre study and you created a common graphic organizer for use when analyzing reading and organizing writing within that same genre. So for example, when studying a comparison contrast text, you might utilize a T-chart or a Venn diagram. So maybe you're reading a comparison contrast essay, and then you're asking students to write a comparison contrast essay. If you're using that Venn diagram or perhaps a T-chart to as a graphic organizer as they're reading, to help them to organize the thoughts in their minds, that will then help you to make that transition when you're asking them to writing, because that same mental structure is already in their mind. Alternatively, use a plot triangle, for example, when studying narrative text. So you're reading a personal narrative, you're creating a plot triangle, and then you're asking students to write a personal narrative. And again, they're using that plot triangle. So again, that just kind of solidifies that structure in the students' minds. Now, there is a great resource. There are many great resources online. If you just Google free graphic organizers, I happen to find this one particular one. I'll give you guys a preview of it. And I do not work for HMH. I just thought that this was a great website. So they have graphic organizers here for different structures of writing, different ways of thinking and analyzing. So sequence of events, they have a step-by-step chart, a sequence chart, a flow chart, a time order chart, a timeline. And you could certainly use this with narrative writing. If you are writing about something that happened in your community, or you're writing about a real life event, something you've experienced, or even showing how to accomplish something, how to do something, certainly any of these charts would be great. Let's take a look at a time order chart just as an example. And so event number 2, event number 1, event number 2, here's our basic topic, and here are the events that happened around that topic. So my first pet, event 1, event 2, event 3, event 4. And again, you can use this when you are reading something that is written in sequential or chronological order. And there are lots of other sequence ones to look at. We have main topic and key details. So we can take a sneak peek at the spider map for a moment. So we have our main idea or our topic in the middle, and then this is basically a web. We will use different terminology for it, but what are your main ideas relating to this topic? And again, you could use that when reading, let's say, an informative piece, and then having students write an informative piece. So again, it's just about helping them to visualize and solidify those structures in their minds. And then they have the good old-fashioned Venn diagram for comparison contrast. So this is just one resource online. Obviously, if you Google graphic organizers, there's tons of them, but it's just trying to get you to think about what the value of using those graphic organizers might be. All right. So moving on. Okay, so let's talk again about a good general strategy for connecting reading and writing. And this can be used with ReadTheory readings or any reading that you're doing in the classroom. So in my class, I like to have my students create reading journals. And what I try to do is, depending on what standards or skills I am focusing on in my classroom, I will take those standards and kind of tweak them, reword them into student-friendly language and create prompts out of them. And I do this not just in New Jersey. We follow the New Jersey core curriculum, which is similar to the national core curriculum. And in my AP class, I use the College Board skills and standards. And so no matter what school you're working in or what standards you're following, this is a concept you can take and use. So we'll use Common Core as an example. So you could take, you could take your choice of, let's say, the RI standard, Reading Informational Standard, and add it to RI 1. And RI 1 always has to do with taking evidence from a text that you have read. So this one is the 5th grade one. It says, RI 5.1, quote accurately from a text when explaining what the text says explicitly and when drawing inferences from the text. And then I'm going to add my choice. Let's say I want my students to focus on RI 3, which is explaining the relationships or interactions between different elements in the reading. So 2 or more individuals or events or ideas or concepts in a historical, scientific, or technical text. And then I can create a prompt. So here's my sample prompt. Describe the relationship between the 2 people we read about in the text. Provide evidence in the form of quotes from the reading. So the idea is to always combine the standard is asking kids to use evidence from the reading with the reading skill that you're focusing on for that particular lesson. Let's take a look at another example. All right, so again, same thing. Your choice of reading standard plus your cite evidence standard. And again, I have 5th grade here. So here's our 5.1 again, quote accurately from a text when explaining what the text says explicitly and when drawing inferences from the text. And then now in my class, I want my students to focus on main ideas. So determine 2 or more main ideas of a text, explain how they are supported by key details, summarize the text. And so now I've created a journal. What is the main idea of the text? Support your response with evidence from the reading. So that's a really great way to come up with reading journals and to make sure that they are aligned with the standards that your school is following. These can be used with ReadTheory prompts or with any reading that you're doing in the class. Okay, now let's talk about ReadTheory specifically. So what's really great about ReadTheory is that you can use the readings as model texts. And those of us who teach writing, we know that oftentimes it's helpful for a student to see a professionally written text and use that as a model and inspiration for their own writing. So when you use ReadTheory, you will see that the reading assignments cross very different modes. They represent a cross section of different writing modes. So, for example, narrative writing. And this one I'm saying narrative writing, or I would even say this particular one, I could even put into literary analysis. So I'm thinking I might have some AP people here today, or people who are teaching literature. And so this gives a little bit of a summary of the play, A Streetcar Named Desire, but it's also a really strong example of literary analysis. In fact, this particular assignment has two passages. It's a paired passage similar to the SAT. And those of you who teach SAT classes or have students who are taking SATs, this is good to note as well. And this particular assignment actually had two different viewpoints about A Streetcar Named Desire, and it would serve as a really good model for literary analysis and a bit of narrative writing as well. And so I have it under both categories. We have examples of argumentative writing in ReadTheory. So plurality at elections or instant runoff voting. This particular selection actually is a great example of argumentative writing. It not only presents the writer's opinion on the issue, but it also gives the counterpoints and counter arguments. So for those teachers who are trying to teach students how to use not just their opinion in writing, but to give counter arguments, this could be used as an example of that. If we're doing basic informative writing, the birth of food culture. Again, there are a lot of readings in the ReadTheory that are basic informative writing. Great models for your students who are writing informative pieces. So we have a nice cross-section of different types of writing. Okay, another great thing about ReadTheory, and this was something I discovered myself as a teacher, that I was not initially aware of. Initially, my use of ReadTheory in the classroom was basically as a differentiated reading instruction website. So I have students, again, as I had mentioned earlier, everything from special needs to AP kids. And my special needs classes in particular are mainstream classes where I have a co-teacher. We have an in-class support teacher. And so I have kids with a wide variety of needs and a wide variety of abilities and strengths and weaknesses. And ReadTheory has really been a great way to kind of bridge the gap for students on every level. And so initially I was using it just as reading instruction. And then I realized, wow, ReadTheory actually gives students the opportunity to provide written responses. So my students were doing the multiple choice questions. And then I realized, oh my goodness, there are written prompts as well. So if you don't have the time to write your own prompts, that is available. And what I have here is just a screenshot so that you know where to find this, because I just found this myself recently. You click under written responses and you can toggle on or off whether you want those to show for your students. The one caveat is that if you're looking for quick and easy grading, the multiple choice is taken care of by ReadTheory. The writing responses you have to grade yourself, which you're going to want to, because you want to be able to evaluate your students' writing skills. And it's not a quick and easy grade. But it is nice that these prompts are tied in with the readings that the students are doing. And again, each student is reading on their own level. They're being given assignments based on their own strengths and weaknesses. And so the written responses, the prompts, are also differentiated because they go with the readings. So that's where to find it. That's a great place to go treasure hunting. Let's toggle down. So here's an example of a written response. What do you think? Who do you think might have written this passage? What was the author's background? How did he or she learn the information in the passage? Explain your ideas. So this was about nature photography. Interesting reading. All right, now let's talk about lesson plans. I don't know about you guys. I am starting to go crazy with lesson planning, especially that I know that my students are coming back on September 7th. And so as teachers, we always appreciate if there are ready-made lesson plans, especially well-written ready-made lesson plans. And ReadTheory has a great supply of these for us, focusing on different reading skills. So we've got lesson plans about tone, point of view, vocabulary and context, central idea, summarizing, theme, characterization, and inferencing. And whoops, I think what we'll do actually is let me show you some of those sample lessons. I'm toggling down to the bottom. I think we might have had a link down there for that. Nope, I have a separate. Okay, hang on there for a moment. ReadTheory lesson plans. All right, coming right up. I'm going to share with you guys. I'm just going to log in. All right, bear with me just for a moment.
Hi, I'm just going to answer a question in the chat in the meantime. The lesson plans, if you just go to the readtheory.org website, scroll down to the bottom, there is a section for lesson plans there. And that's how you can get there. Maybe we can get that in the chat as well, but it's at the bottom of the main page. Okay, back to Lori, I think.
All right, here we are. Sorry about the delay. Okay, so let's take a look at the central idea category just for a moment. And you can see that at the top of the website here, it gives you an opportunity to download all the materials. And as a teacher, you will need to enter your email and submit. I am logged in, so I'm not sure why there's a little glitch right now, but we'll figure that out. If you take a look, it gives you the schedule. This is, they're saying to allot 5 days. You may or may not need 5 days for it. If you're using block instruction, my school uses block instruction, you may need half that time, may not need as much time. And depending on the level of your students, that will alter the time as well. Now, these lesson plans are, they were written with the intention for elementary school levels, but depending on the level of your students, they may still be applicable. And I find even with my high schoolers that they are applicable, and you can tweak it as needed. So let's take a look. So if we were, I'm going to teach central idea. So it gives you the Common Core standard that you're focusing on. And again, this one says it's RI 3 or 4 or 5, grade 3, 4, or 5. But again, depending on the level of your students, it would be applicable. And you can tweak as needed. And if we download, once you put in your email address, you'll be able to download the activities, the worksheets and activities that go with that. Let's take a look at day one. So day one, they have a launch. You're activating students' prior knowledge by asking them to come up with their best definition for central idea. Then you're providing core instruction using the guided notes and handouts, defining what central idea is, introducing the central metaphor for the week. And this week, it would be the central idea Sunday. Guided practice, and then independent practice. And this basic structure is used throughout the lesson plan. So it's really great because for any of these lessons, you're activating prior knowledge, then you're doing whole group instruction, then you're giving the students guided practice. You can have them work in small groups, or you could have them work with partners or individual seat work as you're circulating around the room. Maybe a share and pair, your choice how you want to do that guided practice. And then ultimately, we really want our kids to be independent learners, right? And to be able to read independently. So culminating with the independent practice. So that's day one. And then day two, same thing. We've got our launch. We are practicing identifying possible topics and central ideas of an image. Then there is the core instruction component, the guided practice, whole group, in this case, whole group guided practice. And then there's a group assignment that you can give. And then the independent practice, where they are writing. Students will craft short paragraphs focusing on supporting a central idea about themselves. Exit tickets and checks for understanding are built into the PowerPoint as well. So these are really, really great resources for teaching writing skills. And again, even if you are not teaching grade 3, 4, or 5, the structure of these lessons is really applicable to older students as well. And so really great resource. And again, those lessons are focusing on all the different key skills that we need with our readings. So tone of voice, vocabulary and context. We just looked at central ideas, summarizing, theme, characterization, inferencing. So it's a really great resource for teaching the reading skills and then culminating in writing assignments. So they're taking what they're learning from the reading and then applying that to their own writing. So basically, ReadTheory is a writing instruction tool, not just a reading instruction tool. And then that's what really makes it such a powerful resource in the classroom. So I think that at this point, we can probably open up to questions and answers. And I'll take a quick look in the chat and see what people have asked so far. You can start to post questions if there is something that you would like to know. Denise makes a really good point that those graphic organizers help to make what is read more personal, forcing ownership of detail. Yeah, absolutely. So yes, I know Sheila had asked if we'll be posting the link for graphic organizers, and yes, the links for the resources will be posted. As Michelle said, the link is on the Google document. And I see some people actually helped each other and posted those links. And Denise, yes, this does align itself with New Jersey state test style. I'm a New Jersey person as well, so. Maria asked an interesting question. She asked how to connect ReadTheory as a language learning tool. And that's certainly an interesting question that perhaps somebody from ReadTheory could to reach out to Maria and help her out with. And Denise asked, is that in the free version? And yes, as Lauren said, the written response is available in the free version. So Michelle asks, does the written response allow for adaptive input, voice to text? And that's something that I do not know. Can somebody from ReadTheory perhaps help us out with that question? Or if we don't have the answer to that immediately, perhaps get back to Michelle on that? I love that Rose said that she loves the written response and she uses the rubrics to grade and chat with my kids on it. And yes, the rubrics are a great option as well, because that again helps to solidify in the students' minds the expectations. Denise loves rubrics. So, okay, so Karen said, can we pull up articles that cover a specific reading strategy? And perhaps somebody from ReadTheory can address that more specifically, the differences between the paid and the unpaid version, and the advantages of one over the other, or just the differences between them in terms of being able to really cater the ReadTheory assignments to a particular class's needs. I'm going to continue looking at the questions, see which ones I just as a teacher can help you with. And I am just a teacher like the rest of you guys. I am not, I don't work for ReadTheory, but I really, really love the website. And that's why I'm here, to kind of share what I've learned about the site with you as educators. Okay, let's see. And so there was a question, are the lesson plans part of the free ReadTheory? And yes, I think once you've already provided your email address as a teacher, that should be available to you. If anything that I'm saying about the ReadTheory platform is incorrect, please, if one of the moderators from ReadTheory can correct me on that. Okay, so I see Lauren responded to the idea of other audio versions of the passages. And she said there is an immersive reader that you can download that allows this. So Lauren, I'm wondering, is there a link perhaps that we can provide so that students, or I should say teachers, have access to that audio access? And Sheila, thank you for posting the link to the online dictionary that you have your students work with. Particularly, I know one of the teachers earlier had asked about how can we use this as a way to learn English. And Karen, I know you were talking about the paid version. Somebody from ReadTheory will respond to that. Okay, so Sharon asked, do teachers assign the lesson plan, or are lesson plans assigned to students from their pre-tests? So the lesson plans that we looked at before in those different reading categories, that's driven by the teacher. So you decide what skill you want to teach, and then you can follow those lesson plans to deliver that instruction. But perhaps what you're really looking for is, once you join ReadTheory and you have your students sign up into ReadTheory, how does the basic ReadTheory work? And the basic thing is that once the students take their pre-test, plus one additional quiz, the ReadTheory platform calculates their reading level, and then it assigns kids individual reading assignments based on their strengths and weaknesses. And what I have found with my students is that it becomes a really great motivator for them. Let's say, for example, I have a 10th grade student who is reading on 5th grade level, and they want to raise their levels. And those students are really working diligently with the individualized instruction that the website gives them, see great gains in their reading skills. Let's see. Sheila, I see you use the initial quiz scores for SGOs. I've used ReadTheory for my SGOs as well. It's a great tool because we are very data driven, and we can give our administrators data. Okay, and Lauren said that assigning specific passages is available on the premium version, and she provided the link for that. Okay, so great variety of questions. Any other questions that we can address, either myself as a teacher or our hosts from ReadTheory? So Jen, so I see you asked, what is an SGO? So at least in New Jersey, I know in my school we have what are called student growth objectives. And Denise is helping us out with that as well. So we have to set a particular goal for our students, and we have to collect data to show that we have reached that goal by the end of the school year. So for example, I might have a goal for each of my students to raise their reading levels, maybe let's say 2 grade levels. And so I use the pretest to show where they are at the beginning of the school year, and then at the end of the school year, I can use the data from ReadTheory, which tracks how their skills are growing, and I can then show that the students have shown growth. Lauren, thank you for that immersive reader. That is a great link. Other questions? I'm copying and pasting that immersive reader and emailing it to myself. And Denise, yes, the data, we're given Lexile levels, we're given approximate grade levels. We know that there's a lot of controversy over Lexiles, how to directly translate them into grade levels, and different charts that you look at translating Lexile may have different grade levels associated with those Lexile levels. But yeah, it does give us the ability to look at both. And each student actually has the ability to see their growth in different areas. So how well they're doing, let's say, in looking for a main idea and details, or how well they're able to take what they've learned and apply it to other situations, or how well they're able to look at the organization of the text. Other questions? And Sheila, yes, I agree with you. Pretest, just like any pretest, no pretest tells us everything about a child. And a child can have a good test day or a bad test day. So just because the student gets a particular score on a pretest doesn't necessarily mean that that's where their reading level is at. So you don't want to use it as your end all. But particularly for those of us who have to do SGOs and we have to show our data, beginning data and end data, that's certainly a good initial piece of pretest data. And as Sheila said, you can have the kids do a few quizzes beforehand before you choose which one you're going to use in your SGO. Other questions? So yes, Sheila, I agree with you. I am the sticky note queen. My kids know that I love sticky notes, and they are a great tool for connecting reading and writing. So maybe we can talk a little bit in the chat about the different ideas that our attendees have for connecting reading and writing, because again, any of these strategies can be used in connection with the ReadTheory. Sheila, how do you use the Post-it notes? Are you using them for the students to annotate their reading, or are you giving them a writing prompt beforehand and they're using sticky notes as they're finding evidence and data? Maybe Sheila can share with us a little bit on if other people have tools that they've used to connect the reading and the writing. That would be great as well. And as the teachers are formulating their ideas, our Read Theory hosts and hostesses, is there any information that you feel would be helpful to share with our attendees that we haven't covered? Denise, I love that idea of becoming a fictional character from a reading and rewriting the journal in the first person view. Every single chapter, absolutely. I don't know if other teachers are experiencing this in their schools. In my school district, the emphasis in the beginning of the school year is nonfiction. And so we're not reading full narrative texts from the beginning. We might be reading narrative nonfiction, short narrative nonfiction, but we're not actually doing novels and plays until the second half of the year. So that's something to keep in mind also, to think about the pacing in your own school and the skills that you want to emphasize based on the pacing in your independent school. I love Courtney gave us a link to getting the most out of Read Theory, and that workshop is probably going to cover a lot of the ins and outs of Read Theory specifically that teachers might have.
Hi, Lori. So if you want, we can, along that note, we can advance the slides. Do you want to just advance them for me, maybe? Since they're
I'm
already
sorry?
up here? It just advanced the slide for me
Sure.
for a second. And if more questions come up, of course, we'll get to those. But I think it might be a
Absolutely.
great time to just show these last few slides here. The first,
Whoops.
that's fine. This interaction, first of all, thank you so much. And I'll probably thank you again, but this has been great seeing how reading and writing are so connected and how important that is. And seeing all the responses here that you might want to get to some more of how many ideas there are that teachers are using. It's great to see the sharing that's going on. And I'd just like everybody to know that we do have 2 different opportunities that are online communities for Read Theory. One is on Instagram. You could join. There's giveaways there. You could comment. You could share. And the other is our, and that's at Read Theory Nation. It's right there on the screen. And the other is our Facebook group. So that is also Read Theory Nation. You could search that on Facebook. It's a special group in addition to the Read Theory Facebook page. And in this group, we have teachers talking and sharing ideas just like this. So we would hope that we can get more of you to join those pages because it's really beneficial to everyone. We love the feedback. Okay. And then
next slide.
Next one, that's fine. Yep.
Okay. I just joined the Facebook page in the last week or so as well. So it's great because I think the dialogue that we started today would be great to continue in that Facebook page.
Yeah. And before I was wondering if I should jump in and say surprise at that point, but as a thank you to everyone who came today, we are going to give you a link. It will be in the chat to a free 30-day upgrade to premium. So you'll get to go in there and see all these features that you've been asking about. You know, it's distraction free, no ads. We've already talked about this, assigning specific passages is possible, competitions, the ELA standards reporting. So we hope you'll enjoy that and you'll get to see what the premium is all about. The link is in the chat. And I think the last slide for me is about that webinar. I thought maybe we could leave this on the screen as you answer any last minute questions, is that we do have one more webinar for the summer. And that is getting the most out of Read Theory with Sean Strawn. And just so you know, at the conclusion of this webinar and any other webinars you have attended, or if you will attend this one, you'll receive a certificate for completion for a 1 hour of continuing education. So I know that's a requirement in some places for teachers. So that'll be great. You could print out the certificate or save it to your desktop and have that on file. Did you see any last minute questions there?
So I'm seeing some great suggestions. I know Maria was talking about drawing murals from the readings. Absolutely, anything visual and anything crossing the disciplines and helping kids to pull in their different skills and abilities. Murals are great. Let's see. Terry loves to use sticky notes as well. She uses them to to determine where the setting is, the cultural applications, the climax. Yes, there is something magical about sticky notes. I agree. Everybody loves sticky notes. I'm seeing it. Sheila has a lot in her closet, a pile of them. Yeah, so I want to really thank everybody for coming today. And I was very excited to share my experiences and my ideas with everybody. And I'm always excited to hear other people's ideas. It's the beginning of the school year, so we're all kind of in go-go mode and ready to learn new things and try new things with our classes. The slide with the resources, is that available to attendees? Or was that sent separately? Just want to make sure that they have
page,
access.
yeah, that was in the chat. We can post it again.
Great.
All of the links that Lori had shared during the presentation are in that chat with the graphic organizers. If we could just get that in there again, we thought it'd be helpful to have it all in one place.
Great. So there's a lot of goodies on that site relating to ReadTheory and then relating to other resources that might be helpful to you as teachers as well. Yep, and there's the link. Thank you, Lauren, for posting that. Okay, great. So I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy beginning of the school year or about to start school year schedules. And again, I was really excited to share my experiences and to help my fellow teachers. And I'm excited to learn from everybody else as well. And so thank you for coming today.
And on behalf of ReadTheory, thank you so much, Lori, for doing this webinar for us. I can see how it was so helpful to many people, and the resources that you provided were extra special. So we really thank you for doing this and taking your time to help out your fellow teachers.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Have a great day, everybody.